Good morning, Tan Sri. Hi, this is Gachi from Malaysia, Kini. Yeah, recently, Deputy Finance Minister Johari Abdul Ghani, he spoke in Parliament saying that ringgit depreciation, part of the reason is caused by no confidence votes against Datuk Sri Najib. Is that true? And then please comment. Thanks.
We have already highlighted that the factors explaining the exchange rate movements is due to a number of external factors as well as some domestic factors. And of course, the external factors, everyone has great clarity already. We all know that the anticipation of adjustments in the policy direction of the Federal Reserve Bank has created some reversals in flows. When there was quantitative easing, we received inflows, just like many other emerging economies. And in fact, Malaysia was one of the currencies that appreciated more than others. Now that we are seeing reversals taking place, ours has depreciated more than others. Then, of course, we are seen as an oil-producing economy, and market has given less recognition to the fact that actually we have diversified our economy, that 80% of our economy comprises the manufacturing and services sector. Nevertheless, of course, we are also affected by the drop in oil prices, and this has been another factor. In fact, when there was some recovery at some point in oil prices, we saw that our currency also recovered during that period. So these are, and then of course there was a slowdown being experienced in China, and of course our own assessment is that this slowdown is can be explained to a large extent by the rebalancing of the Chinese economy and some reforms being taken there, and also efforts to rein in some excesses. And of course, this has implications on their growth, but I do believe that it will strengthen their foundations for future, more sustainable growth. So these are the external factors that are affecting many currencies, including the ones for Malaysia. In addition, of course, we have certain uncertainties and tensions prevailing in the political environment, and this also will have an effect on sentiment. And therefore, in part, it will affect currency movements and other indicators in the market.
To clarify, so you agree with him that this may be one of the causes to the uncertainty in the politics elements?
Well, the financial markets to some extent thrive on uncertainty, and when there is tensions prevailing in the political environment, it will contribute to affecting sentiment. But it should not be made, the point should be made that the external factors were the major factors affecting the currency.
Yes. Tan Sri, I'm Keith from BFM 89.9. Still on the topic of the ringgit, since we last met here in August, the ringgit has already depreciated 9%. You mentioned that a lot of it has to do with external and domestic factors, and yet the weakening continues. When do you see it as a right time to maybe reassess Bank Negara's I'm lost for words. Bank Negara's strategy on how to deal with this depreciation? Thank you, Madam Governor.
Yes. Well, what is very important is that the fundamentals still remain in place. And first of all, that measures need to be taken and have been taken and will continue to be taken to support growth. It is important for us to remain on a steady growth trajectory, because if growth were to moderate significantly, of course, this would affect sentiment and assessments on our economy even further. Then secondly, the other important fundamental that affects the currency is the current account surplus and the trade surplus. And we've seen this has actually improved. So the fact that Malaysia remains a surplus economy in the balance of payments is important. And then, of course, thirdly, that we have a sound and solid financial system, that we have a flexible exchange rate that can actually have this flexibility to adjust. Because if the exchange rate didn't have the flexibility to adjust, then the other adjustments will need to take place. And these other adjustments are prices and the demand. And if these adjust, it will have a more permanent effect. Whereas if the exchange rate adjusts, it allows that flexibility to absorb some of the shocks that are taking place. So these are the three fundamentals: growth, the current account, and the solidness of the financial system that is able to continue. It's never been disrupted throughout all these tensions and external developments and so on. Financial intermediation has continued to support the economy, and in particular the SMEs, where the growth of loans to this sector has been 17.5%. So these are where our efforts will be directed to.
Tan Sri, Theo from Sinju. Do we have any wish that the ringgit will be back to 4 ringgit to 380 level, or the best 350 by first Q next year? Thank you.
Well, perhaps when there's more certainty of the policy direction in the major economies, this will certainty will contribute to markets functioning in a more positive direction, and then following resolution of all the issues that we have in our domestic environment, I do believe that the currency will trend towards better reflecting our solid fundamentals.
So you say that you just mentioned that the ringgit you believe would trend towards reflecting the fundamentals. When do you expect that to happen?
When the uncertainties and issues get resolved, and uncertainty in the policy direction, we are all looking forward to normalization of policy in the United States. And I do believe when that happens, it will provide greater certainty on the direction of their policies, and it will contribute to greater stability in the global financial markets. And I do believe that economies such as in many of the emerging economies, such as in Southeast Asia, where we are experiencing growth, that investments will gravitate to these growth areas, and this will contribute positively on our currency, and it will allow our currency to better reflect our fundamentals.
Right, and also on the current account surplus, so with the MOF annual report that was released just right before the budget, it says that the next year current account surplus will be more than half, even though it's still a surplus, but it's more than half. So is that a concern to Bank Negara?
No, so long as it remains a surplus. And there may be some quarters where it may become negative, may become a deficit, but however, fundamentally for the year as a whole, we expect it to remain in surplus. Of course, as you know, we have an export council, and they are one of the areas that we are focused on is to look at areas of whereby exports can be strengthened. And the other area that is also being examined is projects, for example, that have high import content, they can be deferred. And this is important for maintaining the surplus in our current account.
Thank you.
Tan Sri.
Yes.
Tan Sri.
Where are you?
Firdaus Aziz from Bernama.
Yes.
Just wondering, based on our performance from the first quarter to the third quarter, do you still think that the 4.5% to 4 to 5% is still achievable?
While the risks to growth have increased, but at this point in time, we do believe that the economy will remain on the growth path of 4 to 5%. And the point that I would like to highlight is we do have policy space, policy flexibility to support the economy. So from time to time, there will be announcements, and it is very important that to highlight also that Malaysia is not a country that is over-dependent on monetary policy to stimulate growth, that we rely on the broad spectrum of policy measures to support growth. And this, again, is very, very important, because when you're over-reliant on interest rate policy to support growth, this can result in other excesses emerging and financial imbalances building up. And so, therefore, for us at this point in time, we've maintained interest rates at 3.25%, and this, we believe, is an accommodative monetary policy that is supporting overall growth. But there are other measures like special funds and other tax measures that have been introduced to support consumption and investment activity, and other SME programs to support their development. All this will contribute to sustaining the growth. Yes, I should highlight for the first 3 quarters, it's already a 5% growth actually. It's at the stronger end of the range.
Tan Sri, over here.
Yes.
Tan Sri, you're not worried about inflation then, even with the rise, the higher inflation, and then, you know, I noticed you guided that next year is going to be higher. You're not worried about the levels of that? What would cause you to get worried?
Right. Usually, escalating inflation occurs when there is strong demand and when their inflationary expectation is unhinged. However, we don't have those factors in place. Of course, we had the implementation of the GST, and from the experience that we've seen in other countries that implemented this, you have a temporary rise in the immediate term of its introduction, that we expect inflation to rise. And then, of course, the depreciating currency also could contribute to some rise in prices. But when you have a situation of moderating demand, especially consumption demand, this is an offsetting factor. Another important offsetting factor is the lower oil and commodity prices, and this partly offset those two elements. So when we make our projections, we in our assessment, prices will continue to rise until the first quarter. It could rise beyond these current levels to the range of 4 to 5% even, but after that, it will moderate to the long-term average levels of around 3%.
Tan Sri, Keith from BFM again. Here.
Yes.
All right, in the recent budget, there was a plan to give out cash to low-income earners to help them own houses. Now, this can be seen as a way of allowing more people who would otherwise not be able to secure loans. Now they can secure loans. I suppose this in turn may lead to worries that NPLs may increase. I'd like to know Bank Negara's stand on this, please. Thank you. And while I still have the mic, can you shed some light on your succession plan, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your question. Right now, there's a mismatch in demand and supply. The supply of affordable homes, there's a shortage of this. And of course, while we are promoting house ownership, it is only to those that can afford to own houses. We do not want to see individuals and families enter into debt that they cannot service, because it will end up with the house being repossessed. And this is what we do not want to see happen. There should be a supply of these houses, and if individuals and households can afford to enter into a loan commitment, they should be allowed to do so. And so banks have the responsibility, however, to make that assessment, the affordability assessment. It is one of the guidelines that we have given out to the banks and to the non-banks as well, to make the affordability assessment. And if they find that the individual concerned will use up their entire income to pay for a house, then it's very likely that the loan will be rejected, because people need monies to live. And therefore, houses should also be available for rental, so that this group in particular, the lower middle income and the lower income group, need to have a supply of these kind of houses, not only to purchase, but in those that cannot afford to take on a loan, to rent them. And this would be a solution. We don't want to end up like we have seen in other countries, where house ownership is promoted to the extreme, and in the end it created widespread defaults, and people lost their homes as a result, and so on. This is not a direction that we want to move to, but we do want to provide housing to the community. That is important. All right, and on the succession, I do believe that Bank Negara, the succession process, first of all, is the governance committee of our board. And the Bank Negara board is made up mainly of individuals from the private sector. And they chair all the committees of our board. It's chaired by non-Bank Negara officials, and is chaired by a member of the private sector. And we have 3 committees of the board: the audit committee, which is well known, and then the risk oversight committee of the board. And the risk oversight looks at whether Bank Negara has identified all the risks that we are confronted with, and how we are managing and mitigating these risks. And then the third committee of the board is the governance committee of the board, and this committee looks at the, like for example, this year we made a major milestone of having 2 external members appointed to our Monetary Policy Committee. And the board is the one that assesses it. And the board committee, a governance committee of the board, makes the assessment. And I do have to tell you how tough they are, actually, our committee, governance committee of the board, because a few individuals, or 1 or 2 of the individuals that we nominated were not really approved by them, because, you know, either because they have links to other companies that have conflict of interest with the bank and so on. So they take their function very seriously. Now, in the appointment of the governor, they will look at all the credentials of nominations to be governor, and all the criteria, the background that the governor must have is all clearly stated in our act, actually, the Central Banking Act of 2009, that the governor has to have certain background and certain credentials. And this committee will make an assessment of all names, potential candidates for a governor. And in previous years, when the term of the governor was going to be extended, they will make an assessment of how the governor has performed in the previous 5 years, so that they would know, they would make the assessment whether the governor should be renewed, and so on. So that is how the succession, and of course, as you know, I'm supported by very outstanding and exceptional deputy governors, and also assistant governors and heads of department in this bank. And we have succession planning 5 levels down. And this is what reflects the solidness of the bank. And I do believe that we have a candidate to succeed to become governor.
But this correct me if I'm wrong, but this could be a penultimate meeting with reporters with regards to quarterly GDP results.
Pardon?
This could, I could be mistaken, but this could be a penultimate time meeting with us with regards to quarterly GDP results. So how close are we to identifying a candidate to replace you, madam? It's not like I'm chasing you away, but
I do believe, and I would encourage the governance committee to convene and conclude on this issue at least 3 months before the appointments.
Thank you.
Yes.